Good evening. You are listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as usual from the Pineless Palace in the Extreme Studios. I am just west of Orlando, Florida. I'd like to be down under in a little place called Australia because tonight's movie from 1979, Mad Max, is the one that I'm going to be reviewing with not one, but two other extremists here live with me. And that would, of course, be RDV from the Great Midwest and actually the young 20-something Professor Pixel, who's going to get a lesson on flirting and masculinity on the show. And the reason why I mentioned that, gentlemen, is because tonight's movie, Mad Max, we said, you know what, we haven't done enough Mel Gibson films. Let's start with the trilogy because it's phenomenal. But actually, it is the poll winner that we had put up. So I want to say thank you to everybody that voted, participated, retweeted it, and such there too. I want to set the stage, RDV, with going to you first before Pixel with our initial thoughts, just by putting out there with Furiosa coming out recently and the Tom Hardy movie a few years back. It's not a secret in Hollywood or anywhere that George Miller is a feminist, and he's gone from deliberately taking his films to be like Mad Max, which might be considered, pro-male, and then turning them to pro-female. That's just how some people are. We could argue the differences between him and say, that guy that did the Terminator and those other movies that we shall not speak of ever, and how he kind of hated the fact he did testosterone-filled movies. But oh my God, guys, this is an example of a movie that's very good. It hits a lot of right notes. It's a super micro budget movie. I think only like $300,000 or $400,000 American. It was a labor of love, much like kind of like Halloween. It was a massive, massive hit too. And I remember seeing the second Mad Max first, and then going back and watching this. Now it makes a bit more sense to me. And I got to tell you, I haven't seen this film in a long time, but there's a lot I really like about it. And I think it's not an exaggeration when I sit there and say something along the lines of, the secret of the Incas is to Indiana Jones, to then Mad Max is basically a reaction movie, because this thing has got a standard to it that who knew? RDB, what's your initial take on this? I don't even know if it's a first watch for you, but what's your thoughts on it initially?
No, this is like a billionth watch for me. I own this on I got the steel case collection. Yeah, I wouldn't even compare it to any of the new stuff. There is no Mad Max. I don't want to talk about. There's only it ends at Beyond the Thunderdome. That's it. So, bringing up new stuff with this Tom Hardy guy, I've never heard of him. Not that big of a star, apparently. Um, Dude, this is a movie that's controversial because there's some people who's like, well, no, Mad Max is the Road Warrior. We don't watch this first one because well, I'll say this. This they call it Mad Max, but it's not really. It's just his name's Max. He's not mad in this until at the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's Max who goes
Um,
mad.
but like I said, the this movie and the sequel are totally different movies, though.
That's intentional.
Yeah,
They're
which
all actually very different.
because I feel like the way this ended, they weren't planning on making a sequel. It was a one and done. It was a low budget film. It was kind of nice done, being shot on a low budget in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very good movie. Honestly, I like it. It's one of my favorite movies. Some people say like their favorites are Beyond the Thunderdome. Beyond the Thunderdome had a good song. This had an introduction of not only the car, but the outfit, and then you can see his descent into madness. And I love what he says, like, it's like, if I stay out there any longer, it's like, he's gonna quit after seeing what happens to his friend. If I stay out here, I'm gonna be an animal. I'm gonna be just like them, but only I'll have a bronze badge. Saying that one of the good guys. And I love that line. And everything here, like the shock value, you're right, there's shock value. Basically, the whole story is that there's a lot of oil shortages right now. And that's one of the fears back in the day. We'd run out of our necessary,
Mm-hmm.
elements, I guess, or necessities were. And I just love the fact that they basically he's basically the best of the best of when it comes to their cops, and they chase down people on the highway patrol, and they run into basically it's you took out one of our guys, now the gang wants revenge, and these
Yep.
guys are disgustingly creeps, and they're good at it though.
They are. Wow, they are. That's one of the beauties of this is it feels dirty and dank. You feel like you're right there in Australia. That's how great it looks and feels while you're watching. It's very slimy.
Oh, I'm just saying, it feels like you're in the out, not outback, but I mean like any country basically where the criminals are allowed to do what they want, and the government basically, when you go to arrest them, the government says like, no, there's no charges, let them go.
Yeah, it's something where, again, 79. You've got George Miller apparently was some kind of a doctor, I think, in the early 70s as he was trying to get his way into film. So good on him. So the story, I guess, is that he had an idea about with what he had seen with dealing with people, that he wanted to write something about it. And in the 70s, of course, United States, you could argue that it was a very tough time because we had inflation, we had stagflation, we had a combination of all things, and basically it was what a lot of people call the lost decade. De-dollarizing, if that is a thing you believe in, made things unstable. And so you had these long lines for gas. You had all these checks on your cars for your carburetor and all sorts of stuff. I barely remember that as a kid, but I do. I know Jay and I are talking about and chat about the big Washington Redskins win, going to the championship. And it's remarkable because that was literally a generation ago. But I will tell you that there's an optimism now that there was going to the 80s, but the late 70s, this dystopian thing, it really sets the tone for what's happening here in film. Because to your point, RDV, and this is where I want to set the table for Pixel's initial thoughts, is that you almost don't really know what's going on if you can't follow some of their language, whatever. But if you're visually watching it, the place of defense is a shithole. I mean, it literally is crap. It's literally wires with a light bulb. So who wants to work and support the government that the world is breaking down around you? They don't really tell you that. They just show it to you. And that's the beauty of it, because we definitely see that theme carry on. That's something Miller wanted to make sure it happened in all the movies. Pixel, first watch for you or not?
Yeah, it's first watch. I've never seen anything to do with Mad Max.
Pixel, I need to go look outside and look at the sky. Remember the Knight Rider?
You know who I thought of when we see him? Russell Crowe. I'm the Knight Rider. Yeah, so Pixel, first view, initial thoughts. Give it to us.
Yeah, I don't like this.
You're laughing.
I'm to like it. I'm sorry.
Here's the question. Listen, you don't like it because
I was bored throughout it. Like, it was not thrilling to me. They don't give you anything to even try to care about Max until like almost halfway through the movie.
How so?
I mean, that the entire movie goes ahead, and it takes so long that by the time you get to his wife and his kid, they spend 2 minutes with them, and then they are right back onto the scene. And I also didn't get the post-apocalyptic feel from it at all. The roads, even though they are on the Australian outback and they're nice and open, they were far too much like normal roads.
Because it wasn't. Yeah. So here's the thing. Did you hear about the whole thing that they said about there's a real shortage in oil and all that stuff? Like on the radio news report. Okay. So it doesn't go into apocalyptic until Road Warrior.
Yeah, the next one.
That's the next one it comes at. This was not supposed to be apocalyptic thing. The next one is Apocalypse, where basically it's like a couple years later. No, as far as this is basically as a good guy who has a wife and kids, and he's it's about him, basically becoming just like them on there, and it's showing him his early stages.
And I just did not get that pull. It's not a movie where I'm sitting there and watching and waiting for him to go ahead and fall and get.
It's not an action movie as you think it is. It's more of a drama. That's basically what this movie is.
To call this movie a drama is ridiculous. They are literally driving throughout most of it. It's supposed to be car chases, and that's all it is. If you like that, that's what
did you read this?
Draw you in.
It's a highway patrol movie. What do you want?
So
with gangs,
I didn't.
I will disagree, Pixel, and here's an example. So, beginning scene basically is we're introduced to his teammates, a small team that he's a functional unit of. He seems like a good guy. Yes, they don't spend a lot of time, developing that, but they do introduce it, right? So we get the location and all that. We get the fact that these guys are bad motherfuckers, like crazy sick slimeball bastards, even by today's standards. And they don't do nice things. And one thing that Miller does very good in here, especially being on a low budget, is imply the violence rather than actually show it to you. And he does it in a way that's somewhat creative. And by that, I mean, this is okay. Everybody gets their chance at trying to catch the guy they can't. You're like, holy shit, I haven't seen action sequences like this ever, because in film and television, even the stupid car getting knocked off the side and exploding, whether it was an issue of Colombo or whatever like that, it's not the same visceral way it's filmed like it is here, where it's up close and the camera shots. So the whole thing of the main dude going fucking bonkers and then dying, just getting fucking, smashed up to hell, and he's the only guy that can chase him down, is supposed to demonstrate to you, okay, this guy's good at what he does. So when we see him and they kind of set up the town after that interlude of his boss basically saying, hey, we don't want you to quit. The guys really look up to him almost as a leader, even though he doesn't want to be, because he's a married man. He's not single like the guy that goes to the nightclub later on and has an accident. He's a guy that they go, you know what? You're almost too good of a human being to be one of us, because to be one of us, you have to be a sick bastard. But since you're thinking about leaving, we're trying to make this really nice car for you because we're limited in our resources. You're the best of the best. They're all rallying around him. So it's not a role he wants to be in. And this is where I think, to your point, Pixel, when this movie came out, a lot of people were like, oh, this is bullshit. It's slow. It doesn't make any sense. It's very exploitative. And I'm telling you, a lot of people never liked exploitative movies in the 70s. They thought people were going for the lowest common denominator. I would argue differently to that. I don't know what would have worked for you, particularly in this case, to see it. But you can't tell me this thing doesn't start off slow and then just constantly speeds up until the very end. Or am I wrong?
I mean, the slow start goes right into action, so I'm not feeling it, but I'm not drawn in by the act. It's shot very well.
The action doesn't draw you in.
This movie is shot very well. You're right. There are a lot of great moments that are just shot in between the cars and them inside the drivers, and you do get that intensity from Max whenever you first go ahead and see him. He puts on his sunglasses and he's ready to ram that guy.
Yep.
But I didn't have a reason to be. Nothing about this felt special. Not.
Okay. I mean, that's your take. I'm trying to understand.
Are you a car guy, sir?
No, I don't care about cars at all.
And nobody cares about cars anymore, RDV. I think we can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
So RDV,
don't watch Knight Rider. You wouldn't get it. You wouldn't understand it.
No, Knight Rider has, because when they kept saying Knight Rider, that's the Knight Rider I thought of. Him in his talking car. That's cool. There's an element.
A talking car is cooler than a guy taking one out to bikers.
I'll go ahead with that. That's what I'll say.
Well, RDV, you said this is a big film of yours. We were not really talking about the sequel now. That's to come later down the road here on the Extreme Movie Show. You and I are obviously big fans of Mel Gibson, and politics aside, or whether people watch or don't watch people because of those things here too, he was relatively fresh here and all that. At what point in this film did you get turned on to going, okay, this is something different, this is something special? I can't disagree with Pixel saying it's got a certain pace to it that some would argue is slow, because the action scenes are so intense. You need a time period to kind of cool off. I think that was good.
They purposely have Max doesn't really get involved until towards about a good third into the movie, because they want to build up about Goose, his friends, because this turns into a revenge movie. At the end. Yeah. So they really want to. The focus is on his friends, and then at the end, it's basically with him going up against the bad guy. But it's a slow descent into madness, where the officers are starting to become just like the people they're chasing.
Yeah,
you can tell it's a tension. They have a low budget when it comes to their police squad. What I love is that his boss. Phil McCaffey, aka Roger Ward, what he reminds you of? Remember the guy on the second movie, the guy who's in the tank? He's the leader. He's the big buff guy. He wears the mask. Yeah. So whenever I see his boss in here, I'm thinking like
Lord Humongous.
Oh my gosh, the guy is freaking like super tall. Especially when he goes to quit, he's handing his papers in after he saw what happened to Goose, and yeah, I love it because he's in there. It's like, do we step into the Blue Oyster Cult here a little bit? Like the guy's just got the bandana hanging over, and he's just watering his plants. I'm like, here's this big macho guy, and he's watering plants.
Shirtless,
yeah. It was kind of weird, but I mean, I don't know. Like I said, honestly for me, I love this movie. The reason I love this movie because it's like I said, you slowly get to see the origins of Max, you know, and you actually get to learn his last name in this too, because otherwise you never hear his name mentioned anywhere else in the sequels. No, but like I said, it's a slow descent into madness for him. Like, and he's seen the reality is he's still a rookie cop though. That's the thing. He's not the main cop. Goose was in charge. Max was just like a fresh, you know, and now he's got a kid and he's got a wife, which they do show enough. Not, but that's mainly towards the end of it though. They do, but especially when he takes a couple days off. They go and you know, and just you can tell that basically they're very much in love. And
that I think comes through early on. I really do, not in a hokey sort of way. It really does seem that way. And there's an innocence with that RDV that I think if anybody's been in a long-term relationship or a really powerful one, I think this whole thing sets up well against the cops. You know, when they're not chasing the bad guys, they're doing the detective work, because what you're really seeing that descent into madness is, you know, first you got to be kind of normal to break down. You have to lose something. The people you're fighting, it doesn't really matter who they are or what's going on. They're like animals, and you don't want to become one of them to take them out, because then what do you have left? And you can talk about that more in the next movie. But here, Mel Gibson does have a certain way in his eyes, the way he emotes, where he's got what I call those sad puppy dog eyes. He's able to convey this kind of like hurt that he has in him that, you know, very few other actors do. And I talked about Penguin with Colin Farrell being an incredible TV show, right? I mentioned that in my brief review last week. But Colin Farrell's got kind of a similar eyes, but there's an intensity that Mel Gibson has that early on you see him as like a young man around a bunch of really adult males. And so he's not a goof kid. He's earnest. He's kind of innocent. He's not naive, but he wants to stay married. He doesn't want to become one of them. That's why he's quitting. But all these adult males have accepted their lot in life, and they're doing it responsibly. They're not bitching about how life is unfair. They're just basically saying, hey, man, you're the best of one of us. If you don't want to get out, but it is what it is. And so it's not just him losing his family, which we'll talk about here shortly, but it's the fact that society's breaking down. Him as an adult growing into an adult, I'll say male, is really kind of the theme to it. And I think that's so striking in here, even more so than when I was younger.
They really let the biker group shine more and everybody else. Like I said, because they really want to set up the world for this. Is because it's called Mad Max. Yes, I understand that. You know, and the second one's called Mad Max 2. So I understand Pixar's like, well, I wanted more with Max. You know, it's like, you know, it felt like you're getting more of the other characters in the beginning, and then when Max shows up, you know, he does his thing, but he's kind of like still not the main character. Mel Gibson wasn't a star when this movie was made.
He was nobody.
He was nobody. He wasn't like, you know, he didn't have all these.
The thing is, though, there's nothing that just sparked a reason to care for Max. And I should care for Max. I want to feel bad that he's falling into madness, but it's not a slow descent into madness. Like, he loses Goose. That's sad. He's like, okay, I'm getting out now. I'm going to take my family and go. And then his family dies.
That's the point.
The point. So
that's the point.
They're both.
The first thing he does in this movie is chase the guy into a roadblock, and the guy dies. He leads him into a fiery death, and I didn't feel any weight from that. Is that what they're supposed to be? Is he supposed to feel guilty?
No. So the whole thing is that the guy, it's a biker revenge thing. The guy wants revenge on him for killing his thing. So they want Goose and they want Mel Gibson. So now it's basically tit for tat.
Yeah, but I don't care about the tit. So why do I care about the tat?
Well, we know you don't like tits, bro.
It's interesting because, like, I mean, I always bemoan how modern films today, you know, we've talked about this recently, just the the industry expression is the second screen, where you write something that's just barely adequate, but it kind of sucks. It's predictable. It really isn't very good, yet it looks production because of how efficient computers and post operations can be and everything else there too, that you can create something without a lot of money. But people are in a studio going, yeah, let's just slap something together, because everyone's probably on their tablet at home watching, not really paying attention. So who gives a shit? I think a movie like Mad Max stands out not because of the incredible chasings, which honestly, there's not very many of them, but what's in there really hits home. There's nothing, there's no fat on the bone when it comes to what he's trying to get done. And I think that comes through. And honestly, the friggin' stunts in here, the way they're filmed and shot, are just I don't know. I mean, if you've ever gone super fast or whatever, or wiped out in an accident or like that, you can almost feel what's going on here. And I just think it's tremendous. And to see like the Australian sky, and I know I mentioned how I thought it was shot beautifully in the pixel, you agreed, but I just, going from green screen and comic book bullshit and all this backstory and stuff with fake 3D environments and fantasy tale shit, I guess I don't understand, Pixel, what somebody would want to reel them in early on, because this is about as human as it gets.
So
what you just described though about the stunts and everything, I'm not saying that any of that is done poorly, but when the stunts are the reason for the show, then it's not. So I get
no.
That's the whole point. You even yourself said it doesn't really happen until about a third of the way in. It's spending the money on time on the build up to it is the point.
They're building up the characters as far as that point. They said these characters are in a world basically where they basically only have each other, and they're slowly becoming like the criminals that they hunt. You saw how they act. When the cops, when the bad guys gets killed or whatever, they just walk away. They don't care.
Yeah.
Then it's not a slow descent. He's already like him. He got the guy to crash into it, and he's like, okay, well.
So, wait. So you're saying
it's not. It's Mad Max is the title of the film doesn't come relevant until towards the end of the movie, but you don't care about all the before because there's just nothing to make you care. At least for me. Maybe other people. I mean, y'all.
So give us. So maybe as a way for us to understand what you mean by that, because we're not saying you're wrong in that sense. We're not understanding what would have had to happen, say, early on for you to get hooked.
Yes, Dalton. Tell me what you wanted that you're disappointed you didn't get.
I don't know. I don't come to make the story. I need the story to pull me.
Well, can you give us an example of something recent that might be in a similar thing that might have worked for you? Because like Furiosa, for example, I thought was complete dog shit, even though George Miller did it, and I could tell you why, and I could tell you what worked in there and what didn't. So I know you're saying it didn't work in here, but we've covered enough where I'm just wondering, was there something about the way they told the story, or was it ineffective to you? I mean, was it something technical? Mel Gibson's been described by a lot of people, even going into the 80s and 90s, I'm being honest here, is not a good actor. I would disagree with that. Certainly in A Bounty, as Fletcher Christian in 1984, a tremendously intense film. He's no Anthony Hopkins, but he's not supposed to be.
Maybe he feels flat here for me. I don't think Mel Gibson's a bad actor either. Absolutely not. Okay. But here, maybe that's it, because I'm just not drawn into Max at all. If maybe like we go ahead and we take the ending and put it a little closer towards the beginning, you show him with everything that he has in the beginning of the film. Life is, for the most part, for him good because of his wife and his kid and all that.
But they do that.
Take that away.
They did show his wife. Yeah.
The montage at the beach didn't sound
before that. Way before that, when he puts on the mask, when they first show her, she doesn't want him to go. He just had a couple of days off, and he has to go back to work, and she's afraid, and he's gonna die. And then they have other characters that happens to the Goose. She doesn't want him to go. He's distraught. Like I said. He's
struggling with how to handle it.
Maybe it's because he has a friend named Goose. Because I don't like the first Top Gun either.
See, that's I see right there. Goose. So you don't like Top Gun? Your opinions just went out the door, bro.
I like the second Top Gun.
Of course you do. It's aimed towards Zoomers like you.
Well, let's take this from a different angle, since you really can't tell us what you think would work. Okay, fair enough. I'm guessing here from the way you're describing it, but it sounds like you really are offended by the ending.
It's funny he complains about this, but oh my gosh, Gore was great.
No, I'm asking about it because I think that's kind of the whole point. It's everything is brutal.
Yeah.
But at the end, when the main dude gets walloped by that fucking semi, it's just absolutely incredible. I'm like, holy shit, how did they pull that off?
The whole, I just want to address this. You talking about the whole Max caused him the crash? No, the guy caused himself the crash. Knight Rider was crazy to begin with. He started freaking out because Max did the one thing that he did not expect. So I'm playing chicken. Something that Batman would have done.
But it's
we've seen it before in the comic books, you know.
So the guy
lost it.
What I'm saying is, if the revenge of the film fed most of the film, I might have been more let in.
What do you mean? The revenge of the film was the whole entire film.
What are you talking about? The revenge comes in the last 15 minutes.
Wait, which revenge are you talking about? Because there's two different revenges.
Max's revenge. Because
they don't want.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not looking at a slow descent into madness.
They did that though on purpose
because the movie is so long.
The movie's 90 minutes.
Yeah,
and you know the whole slow descent. You literally could go from Act 1 to Act 2 to Act 3 and point out the things that go bad or go negative. They're always escalating, so it's not like you get the big hook and then a bunch of bullshit and then some slap together grand finale like a lot of things today. You get, hey, this is pretty bad. It catches my attention. Oh, wow, it's kind of worse. Oh, my God, they actually did this. And then, holy shit, when he's there and he's having a romantic getaway and then the wife and the kid get harassed and they get separated and all that, when they run over his wife and his kid, and again, it's just really disturbing the way they did it because it's, again, it's low budget. Are you telling me that you don't feel that? I'm being honest. I'm asking a sincere question. Do you really not feel that?
I expected it.
I understand you expected that. That's not my question.
No.
Okay. Then in your opinion, what you're saying is that this film did not, however it went about achieving it for that one particular ending there, it was unsuccessful. That's what we're really saying.
It just didn't hit it for me. Like
running over a wife and a baby in the middle of the road.
Like, oh, your wife died. Too bad.
I was more shocked by the dog being mutilated and hung by the tree when the wife was running. That surprised me because the dog walks away.
A fake carcass being gutted, and I'm a big dog guy. We know that. That meant more to you than the wife and the kid, based on how this movie was done. What was that?
It didn't hit.
So you're shocked that
I don't know what to tell you. It did not come to me. Like the shock and awe. It wasn't a shock. It's like, okay.
So you were shocked that the bikers that were going around and and killing people and doing stuff to women were gonna kill a dog and hang it up.
The fact that the dog was dead was the most surprising thing because the dog just walks off. And you don't hear like, or something. So the dog is just forgotten about for a moment whenever she's just walking home or running home. But
it's supposed to be simple, I think. I don't think it's supposed to be complicated. I don't think there's supposed to be a gotcha.
It's not an in-depth movie. It's not a blockbuster budget movie. So I said it's like Evil Dead. If you ever watch Evil Dead with Bruce Campbell,
Evil Dead is great. I love Evil Dead.
It's the it's the same budget, same kind of story, like bro.
Well, like I always reference Rocky Balboa, the first movie, as being one of the best movies because there's a certain magic to it with the fact that he wrote it, tried to star into it, tried to do everything about it. It was his passion thing. I think he describes it as a miracle.
Bro, I didn't care about that. There was no boxing till the end.
Well, that was honestly, I'm not being sarcastic and I'm picking on you, Pixel, but that's kind of like the analogy is going. It's not a boxing movie. It's a love story. And to me, a lot of people said the same thing about that movie they did with this one. And they said, oh, this is exploitative. It's pure trash. This guy's not an actor. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. It's low budget. It's crap. It's not the haughty auteur thing of being a filmmaker and all this bullshit. The point is it effective? Did you give an audience something positive to watch? The answer is yes. Going out of the 70s, And the thing I always talk about the 80s, that it got to a point where they overdid it. It was, once we started getting into an optimistic decade, as it turned out to be, generally speaking, people wanted the happy ending. And we always joke about how over the top the 80s action films are, and they don't feel violent. They try to overdo it and tear a guy's arm off and beat him with it and stuff like that. And it's funny and all that, but it loses its bite. I go back to Mad Max and I go, to me, this definitely didn't lose its bite, because it's kind of disturbing to watch how it's implied and all that. I just think as an adult with a family and a lot to lose and all that, that it's, could strike a chord in somebody with it. But I mean, you're saying it didn't work like that for you. I'm just trying to relate it to something where something did. And, I really don't know what to say other than if it's a fail for you, it's a fail.
I mean, there are... It's one of those stories that is done again. A gladiator, guy loses everything, and he has to fight his way for revenge. It's
Gladiator's movie that I fell asleep in.
You fell asleep during Gladiator? No, man, I can't.
Well, the last Gladiator.
When he's like this, and he goes this. It's like me. It's like I can't go any further.
I don't know. I really don't know what to say. I feel like I'm the man on the island here, because I love the first Gladiator. I love Mad Max. I mean, and wow. I guess I'm just surprised, because Mad Max, I do think we get a taste of some of the action scenes that get dialed up to 11 when we talk about The Road Warrior, which would be a couple years later. That's an entirely different conversation. I will say this. George Miller, as a feminist, I thought did a very good job of tapping into what you would think would make people feel in the movie. And that's just how fragile the family unit can be. And so I choose to look at this movie that way, because his wife didn't nag him. She was concerned. I thought she did a great job. It's not like, there's a theme to it other than you have something that very few people do. You have a moment in your life where you're very happy. What are you going to do about it? Can you stay that way? And I think that's the struggle that a lot of guys have, is that, hey, now I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm both. How do I juggle all these things? How do I be that producer and all that here? And Max, unfortunately, is not able to do that anymore. And what's the worst thing you can do from a guy's perspective is take away his reason for doing something. And so I agree with you, RDB. I do think it's a slow descent into madness. Pixel, I want to apologize, but I mean, that's how you feel. I just go.
So Pixel,
you didn't feel it.
Would you rather have the Rocky setup where it's like the wife's in the whole entire movie, and at the end they just randomly kill her for no reason?
What? What?
So you're saying you'd rather have the wife?
Where does that happen in Rocky?
No, listen to me. She's in there more so, and Talia Shire is in Rocky more than you say the wife in here is in this movie. So you wanted the wife to be in more scenes and cut back on the highway patrol scenes.
What Rob said was that he viewed this in the same way he views Rocky. I love Rocky. I do. Maybe the love story, the drama that you're saying is here. I just didn't feel it. I was looking for
what did the film need to have? I'm asking that though. What did the film need to have for you to feel that?
Yeah.
What kind of scene could they put in there?
That's what we're more the wife and less of the action.
I'm not the writer here.
We're not asking you to write.
No, but
what would work?
But I'm telling you that the scenes that did have the wife in that, they're simple, quick moments that just I don't feel anything from the two of them.
You're repeating yourself. That is what life is. Are these simple, quick moments? Right. And those are the things you remember when you have tragedy. I'm asking you, okay, they had a scene, they had the bedroom scene. They don't show them screwing, but they show them saying, I love you, I love you. They have them going on a vacation. They have them talking about their future.
Yes.
What more different types of scenes could they maybe have included that you felt would have been more effective?
That's again, that's not my job.
Well, obviously,
I'm telling you that because you compared this to Rocky. Rocky has those moments that you feel the character. You feel for Rocky Balboa, and you feel for Adrian. You feel them as people, and you're witnessing them stumble through life. I didn't feel the life of Mad Max.
So basically,
life just didn't have anything special for me. It didn't. It didn't have those magic moments together.
There was no character development.
That's
what you're saying.
That's what I'll say.
See, I think the difference there, and Pixel, tell me if I'm off base here, is the fact that in Rocky, you see him change from one thing to another because of what he goes through, right? Mad Max, it's the opposite. So to me, when you get, Talia Shire on there, she's kind of going through the same thing, right? They're both doing it together to form a unit. Here, what I'm stressing about what I think the whole fragile nature of this movie is, the whole family unit that Miller's presenting to you, is that it simply exists. Hey, I'd like you to meet such and such. This is his or her, significant other. This is their child or whatever like that. You just have it. And I think that's all George is wanting to do, is basically say,
that's all you really
here's a very delicate situation
family,
and how quickly it can unfold. That's it. It's not the building up to have it, so you can feel it as you're watching them.
Rocky's
turn into it. Rocky, that's what it's about, with the accumulation of the fight at the end.
Yeah.
I love you, Rocky. That's it. I mean, what more can you say? That's the action of them falling into that place. This movie already has them at that place. So to me, those are different in that regard.
I wonder if you'd feel differently had they would have showed the gradual nature of them meeting each other and then getting together and getting married, or in a couple, and she's pregnant, and then this happens. Maybe you'd feel a little remorse.
Maybe, but
maybe little baby. I mean, that's so real feeling.
I don't know what to tell you. There are ways of delivering different things. There are movies that
I was asking for one.
Have an established life.
I was asking for one. You said there are ways. I was just asking for one way that you could that maybe they did a scene differently or something that, in your opinion, would have worked better. That's all. And if you don't have it, that's fine.
I don't have it. I can't tell you,
so you feel
what what they already had, what they could do to go ahead and just improve. I don't think it's a one scene problem. I think the entire movie is just flat in that way to me.
Honestly, there actually is character development in this movie, just not enough for Pixel to appreciate it.
Well, you know what? Here's something I just put in chat that I want to relate it to something he and I had covered, which is, of course, Twin Peaks. I put in the comments here just now that, because I do agree with Pixel to some extent. I like to have an emotional investment in somebody before I could, feel them and see what's going on and all that too. That does not always happen in film. That's intentional. I put in the comments that this is like a deconstruction film. That means you're taking something and breaking it apart. The beauty of Twin Peaks, the first season of it, Who Killed Laura Palmer, and I mentioned this when I talked about, I believe, last week, is that it is a deconstruction, and that you're taking what typically happens out there. Everybody knows each other in a small town, everything that seems to be on the up and up surfacely, and you go down a couple levels, 2, 3, 4 levels, you find out there's a bunch of rat bastards in there, there's drugs, there's violence, there's cheating, there's everything that's the human nature, and you're slowly taking what you think about something and exposing it. You're deconstructing. You're not building them up like Rocky. Rocky's a positive thing. This movie is a deconstructive. What he's doing is basically showing to you, okay, here's a guy that maybe doesn't do any development. He just is. Same thing with his wife and child and their situation. I agree with that. But the fact is every act, there's a significant loss to him. First, it's at a distance. It's professional. It's what's going on in the world. Then it's how it affects his professional life. Then he gets drawn into it unintentionally just because he happens to be good at his job. And then all of a sudden he finds himself by himself at work, and then he doesn't want to go with it. So literally the world, he knows it and has found a sufficient functional place to be in, is slowly being taken away. But at first it doesn't concern him. And as an adult watching this, it's like, oh my God, the stress I was feeling when he's on his vacation with his wife and they went out of town, and his wife's going to get something from the store a minute, and they happen to run into the gang, which I know is convenient. But the whole point is leaving your wife unattended and all that and everything else there too. It's like that's like a big concern and fear. So I'm watching all these things going, God, it's getting worse and worse, and he doesn't see it coming. That's the beauty of it. He's not stupid or dumb. He's not even naive in a childlike sense. He's just, that's what his life is, and it gets taken away from him. I mean, it's kind of sad to me in a way, and the violence just scores into that.
I want to bring up this movie. I was banned in New Zealand and Sweden because the scene with Goose, where he's basically burned to death, actually it just happened in the real life. In one of those countries where it actually happened to a police officer. So they thought it was just too disturbing, so they banned it. It wasn't until after the success of the second movie that they released it in those states or countries.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, it is violent. There is some shock value to this, he said, but overall, it's not supposed to be a happy movie.
No,
it's a guy basically losing everything. And at the end, it basically leads you off with him just being by himself now, and he's basically starting to enjoy being, especially when he gets in the car, goes after the bad guy, he starts to enjoy it, and that's the whole point. He said to his wife, "It's like I can't, I don't want to be like this. I just want to be with you." And the thoughts about his father and stuff, and just like he doesn't want to be away from them anymore.
It's hard work to try to do the right thing all the time and be a functional member of society. It's easier just to be part of a gang and being a thug and being a goofball and basically a drain on society, which a lot of people are, and we can talk about that and say, well, that's not fair, that's not right. I'm just telling you what I think that it is. And a lot of people see that in their own way, however that is. But that's what's so, to me, as I've gotten older, appreciate about this film more is that it is kind of a, that's just how life, and there's really nothing you do about it except react and everything. And I think it gives some more weight to the other films. Although I will say this, as we're getting close to winding down here, I do think George intentionally made all the other films different, even though they have the same character in it, whether it's 2 or 3 or the other ones after it. They're unique films in and of their own that you do not have to watch the previous ones, because I tell you, 2 is great. But the 2 is what we think of when we think of Mad Max. But this really is the character of Mad Max, and just kind of as a joke in a way.
3 is
Max is gone. You just have this guy that was Max in the second one. I'm like, man, that makes 2 even more powerful. If you watch
this is the guy before you get. It's called Mad Max, but this is what leads up into the Road Warrior. The Road Warrior is basically now him being Batman. The third movie is him leaving it, basically going into the sun after he's older and he doesn't want to do it anymore. He's done. He's given up, and he's so it's.
I'm just telling you right now, if it was the fact that those didn't already exist and this was the movie that I saw, I would have never try another movie in this universe.
But you're making there's a difference between you saying it didn't work for you or you didn't feel it versus you're saying it's bad, and it almost makes it sound like this is really bad compared to, like, say, maybe some recent stuff that you liked. It's really, to me, a question of you can not like something and it can be effective. I mean, there is a difference there. That's why I was concerned I wasn't able to pin you down on at least one way, or maybe a scene they could have tweaked or something that might have been like, I'm starting to almost sense that this is what he's trying to do, but I think if he did this, it might have worked. I'm surprised I wasn't able to get that out of you.
I'm telling you, when you go ahead and you have this movie that's supposed to go ahead and destroy this man, Max, just did not draw me in to want him to fight against it. And that's what you should want to do. You shouldn't want him to fall into that, but you understand him going in that position. I understand it. I just don't care. The movie did not make me care.
Gotcha.
Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Maybe you just don't care about other people. You're just selfish.
That's right. I don't care about you.
There's no credit in there for your name.
Well, one of the themes that we do talk about here on Extreme Movie Show, no pun intended, is themes. And so I always like to mention occasionally, especially with some of the newer listeners in here too, as we've been growing lately, is that there's 3 generations here. I'm the 80s guy, RDV's the 90s guy, and Pixel's the aughts guy. So it's very interesting when we come up with something to review, how we have different opinions about it, how we choose to approach describing the movie, because we don't really want to hate watch. We don't want to sit there and get into the politics of it unless it's really pertinent to the story itself. So I obviously give a different background, historical perspective if maybe I was there when I saw it. And that's why I wanted to mention some of the stuff about the time of the late 70s, because I do definitely recall that, whereas like Professor Pixel, the 20-something, doesn't have that as a baseline. So that's one of the things that we do here on Extreme Movie Show, is just kind of like present different ways to it. We don't necessarily research it. We just like to talk about it. But the themes part to it is, if you go back and look at some of our playlists that RDV's recently renamed and reconfigured because of all the information we have out there, you're going to see that with 80s films, or like with a particular actor or actress and such there too. So that's where we like to differentiate ourselves with other reviews that are out there.
This setup has been used before in another movie that was more successful. It's called RoboCop.
But RoboCop went so over the top, right?
I know.
To be kind of an 80s sort of joke, even though it's extremely gory and violent. But you're right, people would laugh at RoboCop. They would not feel that emotional intensity of losing the family because of the type of film it is. Yeah.
But I would say that RoboCop is also a movie. It doesn't happen at the very end. In this movie, it does feel that way. It feels like Max doesn't go mad until the last 10 minutes.
Right, exactly.
And at that point,
that's the point.
The last straw was.
I should have already cared about Max and his family. I just didn't. I don't think the scenes effectively made me care about them.
And you can't tell us why. That's the curious thing, because that was what
so basically, what you're saying when they're together, they didn't feel. You're saying they didn't feel like a real.
It's an opinion. It's like
I understand that, Pixel. So what you're saying though is that you didn't feel like they were a real couple. Like there was no love between them whatsoever.
Not really, no. And the kid kept disappearing. That was another thing. They would glance over, and the kid was just playing with
Pixel. In all seriousness, that's how you would raise a kid back in the day. You were not a helicopter parent.
Yeah. No.
Like when they pulled up into the place that they were visiting, the old lady, the friend of the family's, and the dog just hops out, runs off, and does this thing. That's exactly how it would go. Yep. You'd have your kid out there while you're doing some lawn work or something there too. Absolutely. So I'm being serious. I'm not being facetious at all. Yeah. In a small town like that, absolutely, you would be that way with raising a kid.
The two people arguing and parents, and then the kid walks in the middle of the road during the high speed chase.
Oh my god! Yeah,
one of the best scenes.
I was more worried about that kid.
Well, not really, because that's natural selection. That kid was stupid.
Well, let's just close with this. I'll start by saying, I think it's a great film. It is a polarizing film. Some people definitely feel the way Pixel does. He's not alone in that. I understand that. I think that what we got to see at the end with the way they do some of the stunt work, it's incredible because it even gets better. And it is supposed to be kind of like an adrenaline rush, a visceral thrill. And the problem with that is the better you do it, or the more you do it, the more you get desensitized to it, so the more you need it to be better. And that's where, even though there was some incredible stuff I thought in Furiosa, the CGI and other stuff in there falls flat, makes it horrible. Here, there's just enough, and it is more of like a drama RTV. You mentioned that earlier. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what throws people off, because they don't realize this movie exists. I think everybody's kind of definition starts with the helicopter and Lord Humongous and all that 80s kind of cool ass badass shit, right? Because it's memorable. But it's not nearly as deep as this film is. This is by far the most emotional of all the films, I believe.
It's called Mad Max, but he doesn't become Mad Max till the end, because the whole point, it's an origin story, him becoming Mad Max.
Yes. Just like, I'll say this, if you haven't seen The Penguin, don't read about it, watch it. And at the end, the thing that I think Colin Farrell does a great job of through the whole series is, at the very end, the last episode, and you've got to watch the whole thing for it to make sense, he does something and you go, okay, that's in line with this character. Was it effective? Yes. Did it work? Yes. A lot of times we want to root for characters that are bad guys or trying to make something of themselves because we want somebody that's taking action, right? Doesn't always mean it's a good thing to do.
Yeah,
and
I didn't watch
Max here. It's like the opposite. He was doomed, and there's nothing he can do to save him or his family. Honestly, he just.
I didn't watch The Penguin because I already knew he became the Penguin. What do I need to watch? And there's no value to that.
I don't disagree, because people like to go back, right, and either retcon or put origin stories in for content. If you watch the Mad Max films, again, you don't have to watch them in order, because they're pretty. This is the only one I could say that has some meat on the bone when it comes to that.
I would say you still have to rewatch them in order. You watch this one.
It makes the most sense.
Yeah, it is, because then where he gets the car, where he gets the the dog, and everything.
I don't know, because from everything that I'm hearing, it sounds like you said that he's like Batman in the second one. That seems like maybe there's something that's
it's a new chapter, but this is an origin. Basically, this is like Pixel. You could start with the second one, but you have no idea why he is the way he is.
Yeah, but maybe it would make me want to care.
It's like having Batman, but like we didn't.
Maybe I could force myself to be interested.
Well, I wouldn't want you to force you to watch good stuff. So, I mean, that's too much of a chore for you. You might find something wrong with it and say, like, you know what? I just didn't care about Bruce. His parents dying. Oh well, they shouldn't have walked down the alley. It was stupid. Why did they walk down the alleyway? Why weren't they carrying a gun? They're rich. Where's the security guards?
Like if you're watching a movie about Bruce Wayne, him watching Zorro, and then in the last 5 minutes they kill his parents. And
right.
Then you go ahead and hint at Batman. I don't know what to tell you, and it's just the delivery didn't deliver for me.
He lost. Okay, well, certainly he started losing multiple of his friends were getting injured and killed in this movie, and he was being praised as the hero because he stopped the Knight Rider, and he didn't want that praise. He was still a rookie. He's only 21 years old in this movie. and that's what he was. And I said, like, he just basically didn't want to be. He was scared, especially because at first he had he thought it was okay until he saw what happened to Goose and what they did to him. He lost his nerve, and his hand basically, it's like it's kind of like Frank Castle, bro. His family gets killed, and now he wants revenge.
I mean, yeah. Look, I'm not the biggest Punisher guy in the world, but I've watched the TV show and seen several of the movies. It's cool, but if you just think of it as an action movie, that's fine. But the stories and how he loses it, how he deals with the trauma and all that up to that point. But really anything after the origin is really meaningless in a sense. It's just an excuse to have an action vehicle and somebody to shoot somebody up. That's not what Mad Max turned into.
Especially with characters like Punisher. The point is what has already happened, what made him this way. We don't watch a movie of Frank living his full life and then it's just that.
Well, you wouldn't want that?
You want Frank showing him going into the Marines and
I would love to see how he got deconstructed and turned into because that's PTSD.
With Billy Russo, I wanted to see them serving more than that instead of getting flashbacks. I wanted to see.
But
that'd be great.
Flashbacks are the best way to deliver that because you are witnessing what he has already become. Maybe if this movie was him going ahead and doing these dark, gritty things to the biker gang throughout, and then you have the background of him and his wife and them trying to get away. Oh, I've got to get out of here. Maybe that could have been a better delivery for me. I don't know, but it's just
it falls flat for you. Fair enough. I mean,
he froze.
Final thoughts there, RDV?
Final thoughts is that don't listen to Pixel. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't like good things. Honestly though, except this is a fun movie. Now, yeah, it is a slow burner. It's deliberately done that way. It's not. If you watch
it's not the second film.
If you watch Ferozzo or Fury Road, those are deliberately all just nonstop action. They're meant to be that way because there's no value to them. They are just basically turn your brain off films. So,
any other comments?
I don't know how much you said because I cut out. I heard you say about Ferozzo. I don't know. I've never watched another movie set in this world or whatever.
Well, the other ones. Oh, we just lost Rob now.
Oh no. No, the other ones I don't know anything about. I haven't seen. So I went into this movie and I'm just saying it wasn't enough to keep me interested. It was hard enough to keep my brain on during the movie. That's all I can say.
There he is.
Yeah. I'll make it a bubble and I'll go down here. There we go. But yeah,
what's going on in Florida? You guys are just taking turns just leaving.
I don't know. Or Wi-Fi.
The cable and phone have been out massively here in Central Florida for the past couple hours. I don't know what it is.
But yeah, no, that's what I would say. I'm not just looking for a mindless action film. No, I just don't. I don't think it delivered a reason to care for me. And
that's okay. But that's CJ goes. But
okay, Sorrel.
All right, wrong one.
All right, anything coming up that you need a plug there, RDV?
Well, in 2 seconds, we'll be going over to our Geeky Puppet Show and doing a reading over there. Check it out if you like comic books, you like just silliness. But I do recommend you guys do give this movie a chance. The worst you could do is waste $5.
Yeah, and I'll say this: we've had a couple.
It's on HBO Max too.
Yeah, so it's gonna look great. We had a couple of films that were fairly close, like some during the holiday season, this and that. And I just was up there to say, again, this is by far the most demanded out of all the 3 Mel Gibson films that we put up there. Wasn't even close. So I think that tells us something. So don't know what that is other than we reviewed it. So we, again, appreciate you guys doing that. There'll be another poll going up Tuesday, theme to be determined at that point, but you'll see it. So again, thanks to everybody for voting and letting us know that we exist, sharing time with everybody. It's a lot of fun doing it. Again, we're not always going to agree on stuff. We're not always going to have the answers, but that's what we do here is we just kind of talk it out. And that's the fun part about film. We don't want to, think of a film as, you know, it sucks because it's automatically this or that. No, there might be some ways that they do things good or bad, and it really is about themes and the taste that you have. If you know what I like, you might go, well, that make me want to watch it, or if Pixel likes this, well, I gravitate more towards that. So that's the whole point of doing this, is you get the idea of what people like and how they're describing it, and does that help you make a decision on liking it, enjoying it, or even better yet, thinking about it some more where you see something differently, like whether it was a deconstructed film or some suggestions for future things too. So do appreciate that. So I'd like to thank Pixel for joining us here tonight. RDV, as usual, man in the helm backstage typically, and for everybody involving yourselves tonight with us here on the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Good night now.
This was not a Dan Curtis production.
Of course.